graduating into. We, and particularly you, your class, has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century.
Come to give you peace. Give you peace. Give you peace. Give you peace.
A new world order for the 21st century.
Lucifer matutinus inveniat. Ille in quam Lucifer qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High.
I believe in the Pope because he believes in peace.
It was really amazing because now I'm 31 years old and I never thought about becoming Catholic. And I'm not sure if it's going to happen, of course, but already the thought of it.
This is a Pope that struck such a huge chord among so many people in such a short time. But many do now expect him to get down to business and start reform.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Father Jack Ashcroft, do you not agree that this is the Pope?
No, I do not. He is what we call an anti-pope.
Attached to this telescope is an infrared camera named Lucifer.
Recently, the chief exorcist at the Vatican reported that the devil was in the Vatican.
Morgan. Wolf, Reverend Gabriele Amorth made headlines around the world recently when he said the devil was present in the Vatican. You're talking about something very real, aren't you?
Certo, realissima. Dico, se credete al Vangelo, credete all'esistenza del demonio.
Absolutely, very real.
As to the devil's presence in the Vatican, he says that's no surprise. He once had to perform an exorcism on another exorcist.
The first thing we need to do if we're going to find out if the devil is at the Vatican is take a tour underneath the Vatican. As we arrive underneath the Vatican, we see that it's laid out in a number of rooms marked by letters, as we could see in this aerial view map. Now we will be exploring some of the rooms in this map. Let's start off by looking in room C here. As we look into the room, we see that this is a mausoleum of Lucius Tullius Zethus. The Vatican goes on and explains that this room was used for offerings to the dead. We read, "View of the north wall and mosaic floor. In the corners of the mosaic floor there are 8 marble squares with circular holes through which offerings to the dead were poured during the funeral rites carried out in the burial chamber." So here we have a room where offerings are done to the dead. That's pretty common in Catholicism. Now if we look in the next room, room E, so here in this room they have a vase which has the image of a Medusa. So here underneath the Vatican we have a Medusa. Again, we ask ourselves the question, this is a vase, but yet it's kept underneath the Vatican. This could have easily been removed. If the Vatican was a holy church, you would think that they would have done this. You think underneath the Vatican they would have things that are sacred to Christ and not foreign gods, not idols and images of foreign gods. Now as we move down further to room H, here we see that this is a mausoleum that is one of the largest and most luxurious mausoleums underneath the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica. It says that it was built at the beginning of the second half of the 2nd century during the reign of Emperor Marcus Aurelius and belonging to a freedman of the important Valeri family. And as we're in this mausoleum, we see that there's lots of idols from the old Roman Empire. We ask ourselves, why does Rome keep these idols down underneath St. Peter's Basilica? You would think if they were Christians, they would want to clean all this out. I can't imagine anybody who has a true church would keep idols in their churches, especially pagan idols left over from a bygone pagan era. But here we have the Vatican keeping many pagan idols underneath St. Peter's Basilica. Here is an idol the Vatican is displaying of a head of a child in gilded stucco and a lock of a hair typical of one initiated into the cult of Isis. And this particular idol is an idol of a boy who was initiated into the cult of Isis. If we look in this room, we see that some of the stucco decorating the walls. Here we have a personification of Oceanus. You remember the New Testament book of Revelation says that a beast comes out of the ocean. And so we say, why is the Vatican having these foreign gods underneath its basilica? Why is it protecting them? If it was a true church, it couldn't be doing it for the sake of art, especially with all the evil things that are happening in the Vatican. And as the priest earlier said, that evil does exist, the devil is real, as he admitted. But the hypocrisy of all of this is that they have all these evil images and idols underneath the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica. We also see 2 figures of genuses with bat wings also portrayed on the walls. Again, this is supposed to be a holy church and a holy place. Now this is supposedly all there for many, many years. As we move into the next room, room I, the details of the mosaic floor with Mercury and Pluto's chariot, they go on and explain that this theme is an explicit reference to the overcoming of death and the return of the afterlife. They describe it as a splendid mosaic floor of Mercury is depicted carrying a caduceus with wings at his ankles, walking in front, and a chariot carrying Pluto and his wife Persephone. So here we have all these Roman gods underneath the Vatican, images of foreign gods. Well, as we move to the next room, we find out why they keep all these idols down there in these images. As we move to room U, here we find the shock of all shocks. Here on the wall, it says there is a depiction of Lucifer, that is, the light bearer, the morning star. On the opposite of the wall, there is a drawing of Vesper, the evening star, cosmic symbol of the human life cycle. We find out that when we get to room U, here we have a clear depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican at St. Peter's Basilica. We ask ourselves, why are they keeping this image of Lucifer underneath the Vatican? Again, you would think if you're a Christian church, you would not want to have any of these images. Now we know that they'll go on and say, oh, well, we're saving it because it's a UNESCO heritage site or something like that. This is always their excuse, saving it for the sake of art. But for the true Christian, this is not an excuse, because we know if you're giving glory and propaganda to false deities and false pagan gods, what are you doing? You're in essence supporting the evil spiritual realm. This cannot be from God. And since Rome claims itself to be the one true church, you would think they would lead by example. But what kind of example is this? That you have a depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican for countless hundreds and hundreds of years? Now this image here underneath the Vatican has been there since their claim, which would be Constantine. We would know that he was the first one that built this basilica. And so again we ask ourselves, why are they keeping this depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican? Well, we think the answer for why all these images, idols, are kept underneath the Vatican is because what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with an apostate church that has always been apostate, and even now as it is filled with Freemasons. And so we know that the reason why they're keeping all of this there now, and they're actually revealing this on their internet website, is because they want people to see this. They want people to see what they're really all about. For the masses who believe that Rome is a pure church, they don't mind deceiving them into believing that they are still a Christian church. As you go down underneath the Vatican, down into the next rooms, they will try to convince you on this tour that you take that Peter is buried down there in one of the rooms, and that this gives credence to following the Pope. But we ask the question, why would you want to follow a Pope who has all these evil things underneath his church? It's very clear by this depiction of Lucifer that the devil is in the Vatican. He's hidden way down underneath the Vatican at St. Peter's Basilica. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you may not participate in her sins, and that you may not receive of her plagues. For her sins have piled up as high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities."
The Second Vatican Council and the modernism that issued forth from that, the false teachings, the false practices, there was a response by certain members of the clergy, including a Cardinal Ottaviani, to the changes that the Second Vatican Council was implementing, demonstrating how they undermined the faith, they undermined the foundation of the gospel of Christ, and they literally created a new religion. And by way of demonstrating that, it's interesting to note that the new Mass that is celebrated in most of what are called Catholic churches today is called the Novus Ordo Missae, the New Order Mass. Kind of interesting, that little bit of connection. Yes, it is actually called the Novus Ordo Missae. So, a growing number of clergy responded by saying, we do not accept these changes, we are not going in this direction. And as a matter of fact, the Pope who is agreeing to this has become a manifest heretic. And we cannot agree that he is the Pope any longer. And thus was born a movement called Sede Vacantism. Sede meaning the seat, vacante meaning vacant. In other words, the seat of the Bishop of Rome is empty. There is no Bishop of Rome. From John the 23rd, who was a Freemason, which automatically excommunicated him, down to Frankenpope, or Pope Francis if you prefer. None of these men are Catholic, and none of these men can even claim to be Christians in any sense of the word. They are modernists, they are heretics, they are globalists, they are relativists. And so when I say the so-called Pope, it's because of that. The fact of the matter is, there is grave doubt, and Catholics listening to this need to understand, there is grave doubt that any of these men, ordained or consecrated, using the Novus Ordo rites, is even valid. In other words, the priest in your parish might not even be a valid priest. He might be a layman just like you. So what you have,
talk about taking a vow of celibacy for no good reason, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there are even Novus Ordo Catholics, people who are in the present Catholic Church and who think he's the Pope, who have started to be a little disturbed by the things that Frankenpope is saying, with good reason. The things he is saying are patented relativism. Atheists going to heaven, even talking about homosexuality is acceptable, etc. I mean, these are all the logical ends of the Second Vatican Council. So there are a lot of us.
Would you say then? I mean, because I'm. Hold on one second, just because we're running out of time, and I'm not a Catholic, so these are honest questions. Would you say then, because of the direction that it's going, and because of the occupancy of that position by somebody who is evidently not qualified to hold that position, that it's of a satanic influence? Because I would think if I was Satan, man, that would be a great coup d'etat right there, to put somebody who's not qualified in that seat.
Even Paul VI, who was a heretic himself, at the conclusion of the Second Vatican Council, he pointed, and I encourage your listeners to go look this up and you'll find out it's true, he proclaimed the smoke of Satan has entered the church.
Wow.
Pretty serious proclamation.
So do we see this current Pope leading people in a satanic way? I mean, as an exorcist who's been doing this for a long time, do you see similarities between what the current Pope is doing and what you see in symbology or acting out in the demonic realm?
I will say this, that Francis is promoting the same agenda that the progressives are, the same agenda that the globalists are. And the globalists and the progressives have a foundational philosophy rooted in occultism. Therefore, I would say anyone who remains in the Novus Ordo Church, who continues to follow the hierarchy of the Novus Ordo, their souls are in danger because they are following the program of Satan at this point. Absolutely.
So you referenced that some of at the local parish, so some of our listeners, their local priest might not be a priest. Is the Pope qualified to be a priest? I don't know his history. So does he qualify, or is he not really?
He was ordained in the Novus Ordo rites. So the chances are he is not even a valid priest, which means he cannot be a bishop, which means he cannot be the Pope. Wow. Beyond that, even if he were validly ordained, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Even if he were validly ordained, by virtue of his teachings and their extreme departure from traditional Christian doctrine and morals and ethics, he is no longer a Christian. He's become a false teacher. He's a heretic. And again, the Catholic faithful it would behoove them not to follow him and not to recognize him.
So, what do you make of then his rapid popularity growth? I mean, he's kind of like these. I don't want to say second coming because of the obvious overtone there, but he's rallying Catholics.
Well, yeah. Look at the Catholics he's rallying, though, and look at the people who are lauding him. It's the progressive media who loves him. It's the gay lobby who loves him. You're not looking at Christians who are seeking to be faithful to the teachings of the gospel, faithful to the teachings of the church. What you're seeing are the radical elements of the church who are flocking to this man, and the radical elements in media and society who are supporting this man. So, of course, he's going to have a degree of popularity. Keep in mind, Adolf Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine and was lauded by the progressives as well. It was only when the Holocaust became known to the rest of the world that they tried to recast him as a right-wing extremist when, in fact, he was a leftist. He was one of their own. So you're seeing the same sort of thing play out with Francis. These people are lauding him because he's promoting their agenda, which is the globalist progressive agenda. He's a very real player on the world scene.
When they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night.
This is the world you are graduating into. A new world order for the 21st century.
Thank you.